We're here today to talk about something that's been around for a long time. This is not something that we just decided to do or decided to come up with to help battle the late night curfew and incidents involving our teens. So effective immediately, the Richmond County Sheriff's Office will begin to proactively enforce our curfew laws. These laws are 11 p.m. on the weekdays and 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. on the weekends. And again, this isn't about punishment. This is about protection. Protection from bad choices, bad influences, and being in the wrong place at the wrong time, which often has severe consequences that come along with some of those bad choices. Why now? In the past month, we've had several incidents involving teenagers, juveniles caught with illegal firearms. We had a 17-year-old juvenile who accidentally shot his finger off while trying to hide a firearm during a traffic stop. And we've had groups of juveniles out at 2 or 3 in the morning that we've apprehended trying to break in cars to steal firearms. These aren't harmless mistakes. These are life-changing decisions. And they're happening when teens are unsupervised and out past the curfew. So what's changing? We've worked with our partners in the court system, including Judge Tianna, to streamline the intake process, to issue warnings, give advisories, to help educate and encourage parents to be more responsible and make them aware of the consequences and the bad choices that often comes with their kids being out past curfew. So parents and their kids will both be held accountable. And when this happens, parents will be contacted when necessary and held responsible for their kids' actions if they continue to violate the curfew. Our message to the parents is, we need your help. We don't want to knock on your door at 2 a.m. because we have your kid in the backseat of one of our patrol cars because of a choice that they've made because they're out past curfew. There's nothing good happening for teenagers after 12 midnight. And if they're home, they're safe, and they're not at risk. Our goal is not to fill the criminal justice system with young kids that's been out with curfew violations. Our goal is to keep them out of the system for more serious crimes that often come with them being out past curfew. This is a chance to correct bad behavior before it becomes a criminal record. We're not here to criminalize, we're here to correct their actions. We want voluntary compliance, but we're prepared to enforce it if necessary. If we work together, we can make a difference. We all have a role to play in protecting our youth, and curfew enforcement is just a small piece of that. We have pamphlets for each and every one of you here, fully explaining our curfew information. And at this time, I'd like to introduce someone who's been very instrumental in making this initiative possible, Judge Tianna.
Good morning. Thank you, Sheriff Brantley. So just to touch on some of the points that Sheriff Brantley has already outlined, our goal in the juvenile judicial system is to educate the public. As a juvenile judge, my goal, if I am the first judge that your child sees, is for me to be the last judge that your child will see, because we hope to protect their record so that they are not charged criminally once they are adults who could end up in state, superior, or civil and magistrate court. One thing that we wanted you all to be aware of is that, as the sheriff already said, this is not a new law that is on the books. This is something that was on the books when I was a teenager, and we realized that there is a lack of information that has been presented to the public. And so our goal is not to play a game of hide the ball. We are not trying to set parents and their children up. In fact, we hope that this press conference and all of the social media information that we've released will be used as an effort to be proactive to get this information out so that you all will be aware of what the protocol is in the event that your child should encounter law enforcement. Let me be clear, I cannot speak for Sheriff Brantley, but I'm very confident in saying that this is not a situation where law enforcement officers are waiting around the corner for the clock to strike midnight so that they can catch your children out and about in violation of the curfew. Our goal is to always get our children home safely, especially during the summertime where we see a lot of crimes involving juveniles. Either they are the victims of crimes or they are the perpetrators of crimes. And we would like them to be home safe with their parents because we understand that there are adults who tend to prey on the innocence of youth, and they try to trick them into believing that somehow, some way, they do not have the same amount of consequences if they were to engage in illicit activity with an adult. In addition to what the sheriff has already said, I would like to be clear in letting you all know that we do actively support this initiative. We do want to keep our children safe, as I have already said, and we want to make sure that you all are voluntarily complicit with this protocol. You all will each receive a copy of the handout. We have put it out on social media. There have been multiple news outlets that I see present today, as well as on social media. Keep in mind that a judge never prejudges the facts of the case. So what that means is that if you do end up before myself or one of my colleagues in juvenile court, we will evaluate each case individually based on the facts and the evidence that is presented. If your child is charged in violation of the curfew violation, by law, they will be appointed a child attorney to represent them when they come to court. So if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you, and you will be given a fair opportunity to advocate for your child and yourself as to why you should not be held accountable, or if you should be held accountable, what sort of leniency you would expect from the court. So keep in mind, we do not prejudge a case. We do uphold the law, and our goal is to educate each and every one of you so that we can work in partnership to keep the children in Richmond County safe. And with that being said, I am open to any questions. I'm sure Sheriff Brantley is happy to answer any questions as well.
What about for young people that may work, and we got football season coming up, some of these kids may be 12:30 driving home, and are they going to be getting pulled over?
That's an excellent question. One thing that a lot of people have not realized with the protocol is that under the laws in the state of Georgia, you are allowed to be out after midnight if you are with an adult over the age of 18. So what that means is that do not get confused and believe that because you have given your child permission that somehow they are now allowed to violate the laws of the state of Georgia. But if you have a child who is working, who has a legitimate reason to be out and about, then they need to be in the presence of an adult. If you have any questions and you need any clarity as a parent, then we do have child attorneys across the state. We have many of them in Richmond County. There are plenty of attorneys who can advise you. As a judge, I'm not allowed to give legal advice, but I will say that the statute is very clear that even if your child has a legitimate purpose, they do need to be in the presence of an adult, whether it is you, a trusted guardian, a football coach, an employer, so that we can make sure that they are in compliance with the state laws.
Sounds like parents have got to step it up.
Absolutely. And as a parent myself, I will tell you that I completely understand. I empathize with parents wanting their children to be engaged in extracurricular activities. I have 2 boys myself that are in extracurricular activities, and fortunately for us, we have to realize that this is something that the sheriff has taken upon himself to avoid actually bringing children and their parents in court before a judge such as myself, which is why we are pushing this information out as quickly, as accurately as we can, so that we can ensure that everyone is aware. Because as you may know, if you have not heard it already, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So simply because you are not aware that this law is on the books, it does not mean that you cannot be held accountable. It does not mean that you will not be held accountable, which is why as an officer of the court, I feel as though it is my duty to make sure that you are educated, aware, and informed, because I will be honest with you, I do not want to see your children in the courtroom with myself. I think that Sheriff Brantley believes that his officers could be better used by being proactive, preventing crimes involving adults. And the best way for him to be able to do that is if parents partner with us and ensure that their children are safe at home at their correct and appropriate times.
What kind of charges could parents be looking at when they're on their third, fourth, fifth offense with something like this?
When you are a parent of a juvenile who's in violation of a crime that you are aware of, you can be charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. If you refuse to pick up your child from the sheriff's office, you could also be charged with abandonment because you are the legal guardian who is responsible for that juvenile. Just to clarify, this is not something that we are citing children with as a criminal offense on the first offense. This does fall under the CHIN statute, which is the Children in Need of Services. Our director, Dr. Audrey Amistad, is present as well. So our goal is always to make sure that we avoid children being charged criminally if we can. However, if it is something that continues to be an offense that your child commits with your knowledge, then the parent could be charged in civil and magistrate court, and they do have penalties up to 60 days in confinement, 6 months on probation, and sometimes they have fines up to $1,000. And so you could absolutely be charged by contributing to your child's illicit behavior if you do not do what you need to do to be proactive and prevent it.
Does that kind of coexist with your court? Because I mean, if it's parents, they're not going to go to juvenile court, correct? They're going to go to.
Absolutely. One thing that you have to remember, though, is that in the event that your child is fined in juvenile court, if your child is unemployed, then a lot of times that fine or any other expenses would be incurred by the parent. And so juvenile court is meant to be a partnership with the families. We want to provide services to these children so that hopefully they don't have to continue to need our services in the future. Our goal is always to rehabilitate families, to put them in the best position to parent independently as well as effectively without the assistance of the court. We have a plethora of services that we are happy to provide. However, like I already said, if your child gets fined in juvenile court, then a lot of times that expense does get incurred on the parent. In addition to that, you will see that we have new tracking devices that are being put on children who are found to be repeat offenders of this curfew violation. That is not an effort to embarrass children. In fact, we have met with multiple agencies. We have found the most discreet monitors that we can find because we do not want children going to school being embarrassed by the fact that they had to come to juvenile court. And so that has been a partnership with Superior Court as well, so that we can make sure we are tracking our kids accurately and safely. And even though you only see the sanctions, we do also have an incentive matrix, meaning that if your child is in compliance, we do not want to continue to monitor them indefinitely. We like to monitor them for a short period of time to establish complicit behavior and release them back to the care of their parents. In fact, you will notice when you read the pamphlets that the Sheriff's Office has disseminated, our goal is not to detain these children at all. We hope to make brief contact with the family, make them aware of the issue, and release them back to their parents so that they can discuss what needs to be taken as a proactive measure before they come in front of a juvenile court judge.
My last question is, say a child did have to have one of those monitors on them or a tracker on them. Is there any charge to the parents for them to have that?
Yes, and so initially to install the monitor, there is no charge. However, you could be fined. But if you were to be in violation of that monitor, let's say that we put you under an exclusionary zone, meaning that you are not allowed to be downtown, which is somewhat of a business district as I refer to it, because most of those businesses are either bars or businesses that serve alcohol, meaning that someone under the age of 21 has no legitimate reason to be in that area after midnight, especially if it's not a residential area. And so if you continue to violate the terms of your tracking and you are in zones that you are excluded from, you could be fined. If you were to damage one of the devices, if you were to cut it off, you could be fined up to $350 in order for us to be able to replace that device so that we can make sure that the court is being fair. This is not an incentive or an initiative for the Sheriff's Office or the juvenile court to get rich off of children who are in violation of curfews. We are not making money off of this initiative. We are simply trying to keep our children safe.
What ages are we talking about in this?
A juvenile would be anyone under the age of 18. So if you are 17 and below, then you would need to be home after 11 p.m. on weekdays, which includes Sundays, Fridays, and Saturdays. You would need to be home after midnight. After 5 a.m., you are free to leave your home because obviously high schools start very early in the morning. I'm well aware of that from when I went to Hesba.
How did this enforcement deal with juveniles that are homeless or found to be in homeless families?
And I will tell you that if we are to encounter a juvenile who is homeless, then our ultimate goal is not to obviously penalize them for being out and about, but because at that point you would not necessarily be considered someone who is loitering, right? But that is always a fact-specific situation. So once that case comes before the court, we would first address the needs of that juvenile to see whether or not we need to work with them to find them safe housing, to see whether or not they have a guardian who could provide shelter for them in a safe manner, or if that is someone who needs to be referred to one of our other juvenile courts, such as dependency or family preservation court, so that we can make sure we find housing and shelter for them.
How can parents partner with you all moving forward with this?
Moving forward, you can always reach out to us if we have questions. I will tell you that the sheriff has a very active Facebook page. We do have juvenile court Facebook pages. You can also reach out to Thrive and contact Dr. Audrey Amistad or her staff member, Mr. Cleve Pascal. They are always giving information out to other juveniles and their parents. So even if your child is not in violation of curfew, if you are concerned about the behaviors of your child, if you are having trouble with them being habitually disobedient, if you are not aware of the laws in juvenile court, you can reach out to any of our staff members and they will be happy to connect you with our director. And we will get you all her contact information as well. She's to my left, your right.
Can you explain any neighborhoods or zones that's being prioritized for the curfew enforcement?
So I will defer to Sheriff Brantley on this as well. This is a citywide initiative, and keep in mind when we spoke to the sheriff's office about this issue, our goal was not to target low-income areas, high-crime areas. This is a citywide issue. So regardless of whether you are in a high-crime, low-income area, or if you are in a low-crime, high-income area, you will be treated the same when you come to court, when you are encountered by law enforcement, because the ultimate goal is to make sure that everyone is in compliance with this law regardless of where you live across the CSRA.
Will your office be collecting data and releasing it to the public?
Our office keeps data that can be released, and we will make sure that the sheriff has that information as well.
They can be stopped for driving down the road or in a parking lot, or how would all that work as far as the enforcement?
Well, when it comes to, driving and being stopped, I mean, they would have to be in violation of some law, traffic law to be pulled over. I mean, we're not just randomly looking through, cars to see it and determine whether someone is of age or, old enough to be out past the curfew. But if they are out, then the laws are very clear, and the only way we would come in contact with them if they were driving and they got pulled over for a traffic violation. So, or unless we, are conducting roadblocks that people don't, really tend to listen when we, put that information out that we're having roadblocks, and they kind of take offense to it. So. That would be another way that we may encounter them outside of them just violating a traffic law.
What protocols are in place if a parent can't or is unable to come at that moment? So it's after 12, they're asleep, or they're at work, or I work an hour away. So let's just say my child is out. And then you guys have them, and I get you said that the parent can be charged with
Abandonment or contributing to domestic violence.
If I don't show up, but I'm an hour away, what protocols are in place if that happens?
And so what we've done, we've partnered with the Downtown Development Association, and they've given us the access to a building as a holding area. So we could hold them there until the parent can get there, or if they're within our city limits, at times we may be able to transport them to the parent. But still, regardless of whether you're at work or at home, if they're a juvenile, as a parent, you're still responsible for the actions of your child.
Where is that holding center downtown?
11th and Green.
11th and Green.
It's 971.
971 Broad Street is the juvenile courthouse, but that's not the holding facility. And so the holding facility that the sheriff is referring to was an effort that the sheriff's office took to make sure that we are trying to avoid transporting these juveniles to the RYDC, because we realize that obviously anytime a juvenile encounters a holding facility that resembles a jail or a prison, even if it is designed for minors, that can be a traumatic experience. And so that was something that we took into consideration when we were writing this protocol, is that we do want to minimize these encounters with law enforcement, minimize these traumatic experiences with the court system as much as possible.
That's up for Sheriff. Other enforcement initiatives usually has some sort of physical presence. You know, speeding initiatives, you see the flashing lights, and weekend enforcement downtown, the 2 officers on each block. I think you touched on this earlier, but is there going to be any kind of similar tell for curfew enforcement that people will be able to see?
No, sir. I mean, we're going to go about business as normal, but if we happen to encounter these juveniles, then we'll deal with them accordingly. But like I said, so we're not actively going out trying to find it or find juveniles in, you know, it's not obeying the law. But if we do come in contact with them, we'll deal with them accordingly. But we're not doing anything special to just target juveniles. I think we have enough going on in our county that we really don't need, you know, to have to take the deputies away from doing the things that they really need to be concentrating on to make sure our county is safe. And so that's why we're here. That's why we're putting this out, and we're asking the parents to get a hold of, you know, their juveniles, or their kids, I'm sorry, their kids, if they've been allowing them to, you know, roam the streets and be out past the curfew. So this is just an effort to, you know, prevent them from ending up in our system.
Have you guys seen a decline since you guys really started pushing this initiative? I think it was that Telfair shooting that happened about a month and a half ago, when we started seeing more social media and more press coverage on the curfew. Have you guys seen a downtick from this?
Well, just from an aspect of me getting early morning text messages and calls and things of that nature, I feel like it's working. I feel like the, you know, juveniles are at least being a little smarter about, you know, being out and being seen, you know, as if anyone else who was out, you know, trying to do something that they shouldn't be doing. So hopefully the message gets out. Like I said, we partnered with juvenile judges. Thrive is a great program. The CHIN's program is exceptional, and we're just trying to save as many of our kids as we can. We have enough people in jail, trust me.
Are folks who are 18 or college age or young looking, or, you know, are they advised to just keep their IDs on them so there's no mistakes or mishaps or anything?
Well, I would hope that if they're of age, they would you know, typically have an ID. I know sometimes they don't, but hopefully they will have their identification on them. Sometimes we run into adults that don't have their IDs on for whatever reason. So hopefully if they're of age to have an identification card and they're out and about, then hopefully they will have their ID on. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.